Our next speaker is somebody that I'm excited to hear their voice. I'd like to introduce to you Stephanie. Stephanie, from what I know about her, she's a graphic designer, she's a photographer, she's a makeup artist, as well as a costumer. Would that be an appropriate way of framing it, Stephanie?
Very lightly, but yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I cosplay.
Okay, cool. And from what I understand, is just an all-around really creative and interesting person.
Yeah.
So will you please help me to welcome Stephanie to the mic?
Wow, that was a very nice introduction. Thank you. Yeah, so try and be on point with you, sign lady. Okay.
The sign lady.
The sign lady. All right. So, when I was 13, I wanted nothing more than to be an actress. And if any of you are familiar with Harry Potter, just, you're going to enjoy this. But for those of you who don't, just bear with me. So, when I was 13, that was around the same time that the Harry Potter movies were starting to come out. And from the first time that I heard Hedwig's theme on surround sound in a theater, I was hooked, like obsessively hooked. And I would go home and I would practice spells and, I would take my pretend wand when no one was looking and just... And I would also practice the British accent because I thought that if I got good enough, I would be able to be in a movie. And sure enough, I went online and found out that they don't hire American actors. So I joined drama club instead. And I was crushed by that, not only because I would not get to experience what it was like to fly on a Nimbus 2000, but I would not get to meet Emma Watson, who I developed a huge crush on. And this begins my journey of how I learned that it was sometimes not okay to not wear a mask. Like I said, I joined drama club and I had a few friends that were in it and started making new friends because that's kind of what happens in drama club and theater all around. Everyone just kind of becomes a huge family. And in this family, I met this girl named Alyssa. And she was cute and we were friends and, we got to know each other. And I was interested, one could say. But I had never been interested before. I was like, what do I do? So I made a decision to confide in her two good friends. To kind of express how I felt and see maybe if they could give some insight on how she would react. And I learned very quickly that that was a very big mistake because when I came to school the next day, I was greeted by my peers as I walked down the 8th grade hallway, screaming things such as dyke, freak. That didn't feel too good. And I did not understand what was happening. I was a pretty sheltered and pretty innocent 13-year-old. All around just as a kid, I was very geeky and I liked playing board games and video games and I was pretty athletic and I just didn't have a concept of sexuality in general, really, or just being an adult in general. I just didn't get it. And things escalated really, really quickly, and I felt almost like a toddler when they do something bad, and they're just like, whoa, what did I do? How do I fix it? And that's pretty much where my brain went, is, oh my God, how do I fix this? I would see Alyssa in the hallway, and she would just huff off, very dramatically, drama club. And I could not get her attention for anything, and that really freaked me out and scared me because, first and foremost, she was a friend of mine, and I felt like something I felt hurt my friend, and that was very upsetting to me. And I come from Montessori school, and Back then, you know, when I was in Montessori, the number one thing they taught us was use your words to communicate, and if there's a problem with somebody, you talk about it and you talk it out, and that shaped such a huge part of who I am as a person who just loves communication. So when I saw that she was kind of blowing me off in the hallway, after like maybe the 7th period, I waited at her locker to see if I could get her attention, and maybe she cooled off by then. She didn't cool off. And later that week, I got pulled into the counselor or the social worker's office, or guidance counselor, and she was not so much of a guide as she was very accusing, and kind of warned me to just lay low and don't pursue anything any further. And I was like, okay, so I just completely dropped it, hoping that it would all blow over. Meanwhile, still having kids giving me grief and calling me names that I didn't get. I came home pretty much every day from school crying in tears. And later that same week, I got pulled into the vice principal's office. I went to Station Middle School, and at the time it was Winkleman. And by the way, did I mention my mother worked at my school? So she got pulled in with me as well, and she was completely confused and didn't know why this leader of our school was threatening to call the police on me for stalking, because Alyssa and her 2 friends went in there earlier that week and embellished a bit. It was one of the absolute worst experiences I could have ever gone through, and something that is definitely very haunting. And I just find it very hard to believe that these adults who were meant to lead us, to guide us to solve problems in the best way that we could, were so homophobic and not open-minded at all that they would have looked at a 13-year-old as almost like a sexual predator, and that was just beyond me, and it still is. But to end on a good note, all of that stuff, you know, it really has stuck with me over the years, and I actually ended up transferring school districts when I went to high school, and that's probably one of the best things that could have ever happened to me, because I met friends that just immediately accepted me, and it's given me a much brighter outlook and has shaped me for who I am today. So thank you for listening.
Stephanie, thank you. I will share that story for me hit a little close to home. And see that is the thing about masks, is that they can protect us. It's the reality that sometimes they can, and sometimes it's okay to wear them, and sometimes we have to learn that in challenging ways. I know I certainly have, in my own ways. So thank you for that reminder. You're a brave young woman. Very, very brave.